Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin serves on the Budget, Foreign Relations, and Homeland Security committees. Senator, what a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being with me.
Good morning, Jose.
Good morning. What do you want to see the president do against ISIS specifically?
Well, let's be very clear in our objectives. And I know he said, our objective is clear, but then he said we're going to degrade and destroy. Well, even that's ambiguous. And then, of course, he went on to say that we're going to manage, shrink ISIS to the point where we can manage it. So we haven't been clear enough, and we have to be clear to the extent that we can't negotiate with ISIS. Their diplomacy consists of beheadings, crucifixions. If they're not conducting mass executions, there have been reports they've been burying people alive. And, of course, they enslave women. So these are evil barbarians that they can't be negotiated with. They need to be defeated and destroyed. The president has to be very clear of those objectives. And what he's got to do is he's got to assemble that coalition of the willing. That's what he's doing. A little too late. I mean, he should have been working on this thing for the last year, certainly after ISIS took over Fallujah. But, again, he's denying reality.
Senator.
Back then in January, he said, listen, ISIS is a JV team. Well, I hope he's recognizing reality that they're far more than JV team.
Now,
they represent a real clear threat to America.
Meanwhile, American air power has been blowing these people to smithereens. And in Iraq, it's made a difference in life and death for literally tens of thousands of people. The issue is, if you go into Syria, which has a dictatorship there, and it has air defenses, and it's not very hip on Americans coming into their airspace, is it not worth it, to use the quote of the gentleman we heard at the beginning of this segment, look before you leap when you're entering into another conflict?
Jose, absolutely. We need to be appropriately cautious. We have to think these things through. We need to be planning, and we need to be providing a strategy, but it should have been prepared 6 months ago when Fallujah fell. But they haven't done that. Have dithered. And let's face it, you really want to talk, you want to do Monday morning quarterbacking, the strategic blunder that is resulting in all this is not leaving a stabilizing force behind in Iraq. We would not have seen the disintegration of Iraq. We wouldn't have allowed ISIS to rise from the ashes of al-Qaeda in Iraq. I mean, that's really what happened here. And so we have to take a look at past mistakes. Let's not make those same mistakes again. And, I disagree with the fact that President Obama hasn't had a strategy. His strategy has been one of withdrawing America from the world. We're living with the disastrous consequences of that policy. So hopefully he'll step up the plate show the type of strength and resolve that the world needs out of America.
Yeah, if you rewind the tape even further back, Senator, some would say that if Saddam Hussein were in power, if the Assad dictatorship remained, didn't have a problem with the border with Israel for so many years, that maybe had the United States not gone into war in Iraq, this whole problem, this whole mess wouldn't be around.
Well, let's go back to where we buried our head in the sand in the 90s when al-Qaeda declared war on us, and we ignored that threat. And as a result, the Twin Towers, and I'm here in Wall Street right now, a few blocks from where those things collapsed. That was because we were asleep at the switch. We refused to acknowledge reality. I think this administration has been reality denying for quite some time now. Now's the time to recognize that reality and start dealing with it effectively.
All right, so Senator Johnson, do we send American troops if we go into Syria, when we start bombing and ISIS is not devastated? Do we send American troops, further American troops, to Iraq to deal with ISIS? Is that what you're thinking is possible?
Well, first of all, we're already at war with ISIS. We already have American troops on the ground.
Yes.
So, listen, I support the president's efforts to assemble that coalition of the willing, utilize the Iraqi security forces, use the Peshmerga out of Kurdistan. We've been very slow at supporting the Peshmerga. Again, we can't afford to dither. We need to secure and stabilize whatever regions are currently stable, and we have to obviously work with coalition partners. But again, we've got to do this rapidly. President Obama should be personally on the phone. I appreciate the fact he's at the NATO summit. He ought to be working, certainly the coalition partners right there, and come out of NATO with a very strong, clear message, clear objective, and hopefully a clear strategy.
Well, Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, a pleasure.